welcome to episode 7 of Quadpod podcast. I'm joined with the guys and a very special guest, but I'm going to introduce it. Jadon, welcome, Mr. FarmLifeFPV. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's good. What's up?
Oh, good, man. Good. Mr. Gustan, how's it going, man?
Oh, good. And yourself?
Oh, no complaints. Mr. Grizzly, Buks, how's it going, bro?
Same as last time. Laka.
Oh, good, man. And a very warm and fresh welcome to our podcast, Onigiri. Noellie, how's it going?
Hi guys, how are you?
Oh, no, can't complain. We're welcome and thank you for joining us on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Us here. Yeah, having you on here is an absolute pleasure. I think it's going to be a good podcast this session, and I think we can start off with a couple of questions. Buks, I think you want to ask a few things there, man.
Yeah. Look, we just want to bring more international people be more involved in South Africa, just get the exposure out there, and also to get to know more international people. And Onigiri has agreed to join us today, so that's awesome. And we just I think part of the idea is to get to know them more than just the video. So yeah, maybe you can give us a little bit of your background, Noellie, like where you're from and just a little introduction.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Like I said, I'm still surprised I'm talking to people from South Africa. It's so far from here. It's amazing that we can do that with internet now. So thanks for having me.
Makes it a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you're next to me at the moment, so it's amazing. All right, so yeah, a bit of background. You said as you can hear with my accent, I was born in France, and I moved to Australia now, I think almost 5 years ago, with my boyfriend at the time. And before coming here, I had just graduated a master's degree of engineering.
Nice.
And that was quite long studies, so I needed a break. And I came to Australia for a year of what we call working holiday. So you can work and you can also just, take time off to visit a little bit. And then things happened. I traveled a lot. I found different work here, and after a while, I got the opportunity to be sponsored by the country to stay on a permanent visa. So I took it, and this is why now I'm still in Australia. I can stay here forever now. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And FPV wise, I started I think 2.5 years now ago, something like this, while I was living in Central Desert. In Australia, there was not much to do, so we had YouTube, and I discovered Roto Riot and other channels, other FPV channels. My boyfriend at the time was very interested into drones, line of sight ones, and then he discovered FPV. I discovered FPV at the same time, and we started basically together, something like that.
That's pretty cool.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Is that where you started those videos that looked like a school when you showed lots of videos there?
Yes, exactly. So I was working in that school. It was an indigenous school in a remote community. So we were very far away from everything. We were 9 hours drive from the nearest big city. So we had plenty of time to do things there.
That's pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, go Goose.
No, I was just wondering, you saying you did your master's engineering, so because obviously I'm interested in this because I'm actually starting my master's engineering now as well. Which engineering did you go for?
So that was mechanical engineering in a very broad way, let's say it like that, because mainly I did some design on software, on CAD softwares, but I also had to learn about electronics, robotics, a bit of management, production lines. It's a mechanical engineering school where I went to, but it was trying to be very, how can I say, flexible on the topics and to teach us as much as possible about engineering in general.
Oh, that's very interesting.
That is awesome. I can definitely vouch for taking a break after studying for that, because engineering is not a joke.
It's not. Well, the thing is, I really liked studying it, but then, of course, at the end of the studies, you have to do some internships, and the longest one is a 6 months internship. And discovering the job itself, I was a bit disappointed. I was picturing it, let's say, differently. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in France, it's a bit more, how can I say, a bit more boring than what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It was it was lots of management and less creativity. So I was like, I might just take a few steps back, go on holiday, improve my English, see how it goes after that. This is why I did that.
I was going to say the one thing about that is the one thing about universities and campus and studying, and that is the spots you can get out of them to fly. They're actually quite nice spots in terms of like some buildings and that.
That
I've
is
seen
true.
some pretty cool campuses. It's got some nice spots to fly.
Permission is always the bugger, though.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know.
always
Is permission quite a big thing your side, hey, Onigiri?
In my side of the world, in Australia.
How's
to
it
fly
to get
spots.
to random spots and stuff? Is it difficult? Is there a lot of legislation involved?
It depends exactly where you fly in Australia, because you probably know that the majority of the land in Australia is still not really occupied by people, but because there's no people there, there's a reason for it. It's because it's empty. There's nothing. It's what we call the bush. So it's desert basically. So there, obviously, you can fly where you want. And there's not much to see, so you can do some long range if you want to do something interesting where there's nothing basically. Then when it comes to city, well, I'm studying this at the moment actually for drone license purpose, for commercial pilot license.
Okay.
So technically, here FPV is not allowed anywhere, because as soon as you wear goggles, you're not allowed to fly without a spotter. And no one flies with a spotter.
We've got that
I
as
suppose
well.
that's same.
Yeah, we have that as well.
But
so
honestly,
even asking for permission would result in a no, I suppose. It's always like trying to find spots where you don't get caught, basically, which is a bit sad, but that's how it is.
Yeah, I suppose that's worldwide kind of going notion about it.
actually, I think I've read up on an update at the start of this year on the SAMA notification things. Which SAMA, if for those that don't know, is the South African Model Aircraft Association. So they're the regulating body for any RC flying in South Africa. They actually recently seem to have make that point fall away, that that flying with goggles is not completely illegal anymore. But don't quote me on this. I need to actually go double check up on this, because I saw this on like a little article thingy. I don't think it was actually on the SAMA website, so don't quote me on this, but there's a big chance that flying with your goggles on does not automatically make it illegal anymore.
Jadon, do you want to maybe touch on that? Because I know we touched on that in the previous podcast. Do you know anything about that?
Actually, sure. All I know is if you ask anyone from SAMA or FarmLifeFPV, they will tell you if you can fly with a spotter, do it.
I didn't mean not fly with a spotter. I'm just saying it used to be that if you put the goggles on, you don't have line of sight of the aircraft anymore. So that's automatically illegal. I think that little clause fell away. Yeah.
Okay.
I see. Hopefully it changes a little bit, It's strange, because does it apply only to drones? Because, for example, I work in a hobby shop, maybe and some people FPV cars. So what do we do? Maybe we pretend to have a car on a field, and if someone comes, you're like, no, I'm just driving my car around.
I think that's where the big change needs to come. There's a big misconception between drones and our. We don't really classify as a drone, since a drone is an autonomous vehicle, and we are not autonomous in any way. So I think the big problem in legislation is it doesn't give way to both drones and our. I don't even know what we are classified. We're an unmanned vehicle, but that's pretty much where it stops. And I think legislation needs to have that divide, because drones can be all those bad things what they make it out to be. But I mean, unmanned vehicles, if you're fully in control of the vehicle, that doesn't fall under the same thing for me.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
totally agree. Like, we did an air show here. We were invited to go fly at an air show, and then we got there, and the guy's like, no, sorry, no drones at an air show. And we went to the meeting and everything, and actually showed them what we were flying, and they were like, oh, that's not a drone, you should have just told us.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Not all quadcopters are drones, and not all drones are quadcopters. I mean, you get drones that have wheels; they don't actually fly, or tracks. But then again, would you call your RC Nitro 4x4, whatever, little RC car, would you call that a drone? Definitely not, though.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, it's a flying camera. Some people who come at the shop sometimes where I work, they do FPV drones, but they also do FPV wings, long range.
Right.
Why? You know, they obviously have to stay under same 25 milliwatt, but you don't do long range on 25. But anyway,
No.
why? Like the regulation, people are scared of drones, but FPV long range wings can exactly do the same as what we do.
If not more. I mean, they can carry way bigger payloads, depending on what you do. I mean, we've got a pretty big FPV wing community here as well, and South Africa is one of the most diverse countries, I would say. We've got from snowy mountain caps to desert areas as well, all over the country. So we get footage from guys flying mountain peaks and footage from guys cruising in the desert over the dunes. And it's not necessarily all classified as drones. It's all controlled by the person directly. And so that's where I feel it's just a way of capturing things from a different perspective. It's not really a drone.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, completely agree. And
Yeah, most definitely.
So you say you only learned about FPV when you went to Australia. So it wasn't really of that when you were in France?
Well, not exactly. So back in France, during my last year before I graduated, this is when I met Kevin at the time, so my boyfriend at the time, and he was already into sort of FPV drones, but that was a huge drone, like probably what we call now X class, a bit smaller maybe, between 7-inch and X class, and it was a very small, a very slow drone. It was on Arduino at the time, and it was flying like a potato.
Yes, I think
even before Nays, I think.
Yes, I think so.
Hectic when you have like a channel wire for every single control channel.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. PPM or something like that.
There we go.
Yes.
That's crazy.
So he was so excited the day he took off, and I could hear that drone. I was next to him, and it was quite impressive to see that going in the air. And then we watched the footage. I think he could fly, although he could probably fly for something like 15 minutes with the battery he had on it. And he came back inside in a lounge room, and then we watched the footage for 15 minutes. It was quite boring, but he was so happy. And at the time, I could not really see the point. I was like, okay, you have a camera on a very small thing. That's fun, but I really didn't understand. I had a small drone to fly line of sight. But yeah, then we graduated, went traveling, and we couldn't have the drones with us anyway. It's only when I started seeing like fast drones footage, so freestyle or racing, I was like, oh yeah, okay, there's a point now.
That's pretty cool. So I'm assuming then when you went to Australia and you started seeing that, how was it being a woman joining the community, not seeing any other woman? Was that a bit of a challenge? But I mean, from an engineering background, it makes complete sense, like we understand.
Weren't you like part of the first few ladies that actually started the FPV community in terms of like, other than Zoe FPV who was already sort of in the FPV community at the time?
Yes, when I started, I had seen Zoe and Julie FPV at the time, because they were both in Rotor Riot episodes. So they actually motivated me to start, even though I've always been in male-dominated areas, let's say, because I did engineering for studies, and the sport that I did for a very long time was karate, and there's not many women in there either. So I'm not uncomfortable in a male-dominated area. I always hope there's more female, just because, just to show that we can do. When it doesn't come to very, very strong or anything like that, when it comes to just skills and brain skills, I think we're capable enough, just like men, to do the same things. So I just always hope there's more women, but I'm not scared to enter male-dominated.
Do you see that Do you see that there's more and more women getting interested, or do you think it's declining a bit? Because it's also, for me, like flying drones there's no need for it to be male or female. It's a complete artistic envisioning of who you are and what you want to show and portray. And it's weird for me why so few girls are involved. I wondering,
agree with that.
Is it the whole that you have to solder and the whole fiddling with electronics thing that puts them off, or what, in your opinion, as a woman, is what's holding women back?
It's very hard to tell why, because for me, I didn't really enter the hobby because I wanted to fly. I thought it was amazing to be able to fly with goggles, especially. But I always saw that as a flying camera, and I know a lot of girls are interested into art, and I was like, this is different. We're going to be able to make edits from the ground, but from the air as well. So I don't really know why. I think it's just a lack of awareness among the female community, or they just see that as a controller and something that flies, but I don't know if they show the right edits. Of course, if they just see flip-flops around, like, very skilled pilot can do, but it's not always attractive to watch. Maybe they should watch more like a Johnny FPV style, this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Whenever I show family who don't really know, I always start them on with a nice chill Johnny video to get them intrigued in the amazing the scenery and what you can do, and then that piques the interest, and then you can progressively introduce them to more flippy floppy videos.
Yes. But I think there's more women. I don't know, but being at the shop, I can definitely see little girls coming with their dad and then getting a drone as well. So I think if not now, next generation, if drones are still there in like 5-10 years, I hope so, we'll have more women, because little girls are very interested into that as well.
But Jadon, that sort of touches on what you said last week. You guys went to the schools and you found that the primary schools were more interested. Was it also, from your experience, was it the girls that were interested or more the little boys?
The main group of them was boys. We had 1 or 2 girls interested, and I think the main reason for that was a lot of the boys that age are very interested in anything that goes fast and makes a loud noise. But then from that, the girls would come in with their brothers. If they're in one family, their siblings would come with. Then they'd see it and also get interested.
Yeah.
That's an important thing you mentioned there, right? Because I've noticed small kids, it doesn't matter if they're boys or girls, it really doesn't matter. They're interested in very similar things, especially when like you say, it goes loud, it's loud and it's fast. That doesn't really, they all like it, but as soon as the kids start becoming beyond a certain age, then it's kind of no, that's more like a boy thing and that's more like a girl thing, and I think there is some kind of issue right there.
That's the point we need to focus on, to get that point where girls decide that FPV is for boys. That's where we need to introduce them to the artistic side of things and show them that it's not to be split, that it's kept together.
Exactly, it can be like dancing. It's actually, in fact, freestyle FPV is pretty much dancing, but with a quad.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's the way we raise girls in general. I know. I don't know how it translates in facts. I don't even remember being told these things, but apparently studies show that we tell girls, to be careful, to be safe, don't do that, don't be too energetic, be quiet. Apparently we tell that girls more to boys. So as soon as there's something like very full of energy, like a drone, maybe automatically they think, oh yeah, it's dangerous, I need to be safe, it's not for me as well. I know it was the same for me for bikes and stuff when I was younger. I could see boys doing stunts and stuff, and I was like, oh no, I'm just going to cruise.
Yeah.
I think it's like a bunch of overprotective dads keeping their little girls from reaching potential.
Maybe, yes.
Interesting.
If you started a FPV Wings podcast, you should call it Wings.
That would
Yeah,
be
dude.
funny.
I've already thought of that name.
Then we should have called this propping it.
No. Oh my gosh.
That's so
Alright,
bad.
I'm back.
It might actually work.
Welcome
So
back.
stupid. Okay, let's look at what do we have on this list. Onigiri, I've noticed over the years your logo has changed a few times, and logos are an interesting thing. You see people with logos, some people without them. Where does onigiri come from? What does it mean? Or just what's about that?
Right. So onigiri is a Japanese dish for rice bowl. So usually it's just a bowl of rice with some stuff inside. It can be like fish or nothing sometimes. But it was a handle that I used online a lot when I was like in high school. I was really into Japanese thing. I was doing karate. I was really into manga and anime, these kind of things. And I had an Asian boyfriend at the time, and he would always call me sort of rice bowl. So I just translated that to Japanese, and it was always my name online for everything. For when we were writing blogs and this kind of things. So I just kept it when I came to FPV.
Cool. And then the logos,
That's awesome.
did you design them yourself, or did you?
The first one I did with the help of Kevin at the time.
Yeah.
Then his dad is a graphic designer, so he did the improved version of it. Then I had graphics. What was his name? Dogwood Graphics. He just volunteered.
Okay, that's a guy that I've seen a bunch of on the Facebook Red Riot group. He sometimes posts, isn't it?
He does a lot. Yes, he does a lot for the community. I'm not too sure. I don't want to say anything like that, but I think he's working for a famous company on logo at the moment. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say it or something like this. But so I don't want to say that, but you might see more of his work now. And I was so happy that he did that because I didn't ask, and it was just a nice surprise. And then all these logos were quite like female oriented, sort of like cute and very Japanese. Yeah. And then suddenly last year I wasn't feeling like I wanted my channel to change a bit direction, be more serious, and I don't know. I felt like I needed to change my logo, so I redid it myself. It's very simple now. It's just a triangle with onigiri. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. No, like I'm also at the point where I finally got a GoPro like about a month ago. So I could finally start recording some flights, and when you upload it, it feels weird to not have a logo. So I'm also in the whole process looking at what different options. But it's quite an expression of yourself, an expression of who you are. So you must put some thought into it.
Yes. Do you have ideas already about it, or not really?
Well, I'm Grizzly FPV because my quad almost mauled my wife's face the first time I got one. So I just had... that's a whole story on its own. But so I'm gonna go with like something grizzly bear related. It's a scratch. Okay. Like I'm looking at like claw scratch kind of logo. But we'll see how that develops.
You should ask Dogwood. It would be probably have.
No, you're saying Noellie?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, if you ask Dogwood Graphics, he would probably have some nice ideas for you as well.
Probably, yeah. And Jadon, you were saying about your logo?
My logo is very simple. It's basic. Well, the animated intro of it is in most of my earlier videos, I had a Jack Russell chasing the quad. Like we've had to keep him inside now because he's getting old and it's starting to get dangerous for him to run for that long. But he would always chase the quad. So I got known for there always being that Jack Russell in the videos. So the animated intro is basically a quad flying across the screen, painting FarmLifeFPV over it, and then the dog under it. And then the logo is just in black and white FarmLifeFPV with the dog next to it.
Was it an animated dog though?
Yeah.
You should keep that though.
I haven't seen that though. That could be your thing, Jadon.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I have it on some of my videos, on others not.
Yeah. But Noellie, have you ever been interested in racing?
Yes. So last year I moved to Melbourne after traveling a little bit everywhere. I finally settled down here, and there's a club here. Well, there's two clubs there, Eastside and MMRC. But I know more people from Eastside, the club we call Eastside here, because I knew them from previous meetings and experience together. So I joined Eastside. And I was very motivated to race. I had 2 helixes by Impulse RC with T-motors on it. I had Crossfire. I had, I tried to put some decent stuff on it. And I went there for 2 or 3 times. And then life went in between. I got very busy at work as well. So I had to stop. And I almost I reduced freestyle a lot as well. But that was more for personal reason than for FPV reasons. So racing now has been put aside because I'm trying to get back to freestyle properly. But I always said in August, I want to be back to racing. So I have 1 month now to fix my helixes. Maybe I don't want to compete because competition puts a bit too much stress on me sometimes. But I would like to do some racing training so I can improve my lines and maybe throttle control and all these kind of things. So I'd like to go back to racing a little bit now.
That's awesome, though. Actually, while we're on this point, to everyone listening to this podcast, if you were like me, a freestyle purist, and you'd never try racing in a million years, to that I say I tried racing recently, as you've probably heard in one of the previous podcast episodes. But please do yourself a favor and go and try this, because after the very first race, I realized how much racing can improve my freestyle, and freestyle can improve racing. It's actually amazing. I feel like I've been missing out for 2.5 years. I've been missing out on half of this hobby.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, though, it just keeps coming back to me. You need to be able to maintain those quads. And racing seems much harder on your drones than freestyle.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
I suppose, I don't know if you know Noellie, Jadon, FarmLife. He went to Shenzhen last year for the World Drone Racing. He represented South Africa and got national colors. And so, how many drones did you guys go through there, Jadon?
I think I went through 3 of them, and I went through 1 on the drag race track, and then the other 2 were on the main track. I might have actually gone through 4, I'm not sure, but that track was built out of PVC pipe. Now, when I say PVC pipe, you don't think it's very strong, but when I say, if you hit this PVC pipe track with a car, it would leave some damage on the car and probably only break 1 or 2 things on the track. I'm pretty sure that would actually happen, because this stuff was proper hardcore PVC. I crashed into 1 gate, not even going that fast. I was actually coming down from a rise in the track at 0 throttle, and it broke the front brace and the front arm completely off. Never found them.
From your America.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's much. But
yeah, that competition was awesome to watch. We could watch it on YouTube, right? That's the live stream they've put out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably saw you without knowing it was you.
We've got a live stream on our national events, but it's just a racing league we've got running in South Africa that we live stream on YouTube. And it's actually, they've been doing a pretty good job of that as well. So that's pretty cool. I don't know when the next one is.
If I may, Noellie, how exactly do you scout out new locations, or even if it's a location that you've flown before, how do you actually go about finding decent lines? Because I find myself sometimes, actually a lot, flying around looking for things to do and not really know what to do until I all of a sudden see something. I do a nice little freestyle trick over or through it or whatever, but sometimes I feel like I'm looking for something to do, and that breaks the flow quite badly.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're asking, because this is what I'm trying to work on at the moment. So I'm trying to work on more confident flying, so a bit faster and closer to the ground, but also lines. And lines have always been a problem with me for some reason. Some days I'm able to maintain a sort of flowy flying, and some other days when I look back at my footage, I'm like, why did I just turn now? I should have kept, following the line. I was like, what did my brain decide to do? Why? So on a usual spot, it's hard to find new lines as well, because you're so used to taking the same paths. It's hard to break the habit. So what I try to do is, for example, I have a spot that you've probably seen also in Snake's FPV videos if you watch him.
Yes.
It has tall tree and a bench. That's all I can describe, because it's very a strange spot. But what I try to do is getting closer and closer to obstacles, and sometimes you end up seeing gaps in them, or new gaps, because trees change with seasons. And this is how I find new lines, usually new gaps and something that I've never seen before, or a branch that changed. This is what happens. I like spots with trees. So because it's natural spots, they change with seasons. So it ended up bringing new lines as well. But it's something that I find hard to do at the moment, following lines.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you mentioned about the whole seasons change and the spots change and different lines appear. I noticed because I actually I'm in Cape Town side for South Africa in South Africa and last year I came here for just a holiday before I decided to move here. And the spot that I flew, there was a line that I actually enjoyed quite thoroughly, if I could say, when I came here last year. And when I came here this year, it was actually a completely different, the line was completely changed, obviously, because the seasons, different seasons, and obviously the growth of the environment around it changed. So I actually found that quite interesting on what you said there.
Yeah. So another topic we thought to ask Noellie, like building your YouTube channel, we found, or I've noticed, a lot of the channels become monotonous. And what do you think it needs for someone to break out or to become something new? Because I've heard it on a few chats now. There's so many people watch Steel, people watch Snake, people watch Lidrip, people watch Stinger Swarm, people watch Onigiri. What do you do to break out, to get out of it? Because it feels like the videos are saturating, but like it's saturating in the community. It's sort of the same and so forth.
Yeah, that's true. This is something I was wondering recently. I was like, what would happen to someone who starts now? And I was wondering that because there's a French pilot who's 18, I think 19. He's called FPV, and I really like what he does. And I think his channel is. Yeah, oh, you know him. That's amazing. And I think his channel should have like twice, if not 3 times the amount of subscribers. And I was wondering that recently because I don't know what he should do differently. His flying is amazing. It's typical from the new generation of pilots coming. It's full of surprise. And you're like, how can the brain think of these moves? He has such surprising moves when he flies. But he's not the only one. There's many of young pilots. And I think it's the same old recipe though. You get in front of the camera and you show your personality, and then because everyone is mainly different, that's what makes the difference, and then you're flying. But there's not much you can do. There's a lot of luck involved as well. Anyway, I think
the only thing I've seen that really makes a difference is like the community spotlight of Rotor Riot. I've seen pretty good pilots that get their subscription count up and their views up because they got a spot on Spotlight. So I think that's a very good point. What do you feel, Goose?
No, I definitely agree. Like, we need more things to like point out and give some recognition and credit where credit is due to new pilots doing some really good things. But I definitely have an issue with, I'd say it feels like the community is a bit saturated, specifically the YouTube side of things. Because when everyone is flying like everyone else, everyone flies the same. Or at least if everyone flies amazing, like what Noellie says the new guys are doing, the new pilots coming into the sport or hobby. If everyone flies amazing, it's not really easy to stand out as something new or fresh, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe showing more of yourself and your journey, because it can also show tips, like hidden tips, because you don't think about it, but when you share your problems or the build that you have done your way, it's showing something different, and people learn from it maybe, and I don't know, I think maybe showing more of your human side than just the drone side would help to stand out from everything else.
That's amazing.
Totally.
Yeah, Onigiri, do you think people also reaching out on social media, posting their channels to Facebook and Instagram, do you think that's also quite a big part of growing yourself as a person in the FPV community?
I used to think that a lot, and then you look at your stats on YouTube and you realize that it's a very small percentage, the social media. I think YouTube has an algorithm that is like growing on YouTube, being able to gather audience from other social media is very hard. The conversion rate is very, very low, but it doesn't hurt to try to share your stuff on Facebook and Instagram. I would say Instagram is probably more efficient these days, but like you said, exposure by other stronger channels helps a lot. My channel got really helped by a podcast here at the time in Australia called FPV Live. They helped me reach 1,000 subscribers, and from the 1,000 subscribers, I think that's when YouTube algorithm started as well, pushing my videos. So it's a very complicated way to grow your channel, and especially for male in the hobby as well. I think it's fair to say male pilots have even less exposure than female ones.
I think one of the things, if I remember, when Steele sent you his drone, that video I think was quite the turning point.
Yeah, because
that's where most people
Mr. Steele
in your video, and that just exploded.
Definitely. But you know what's funny is the first 24 hours of this video, it was not doing anything. The title was saying Mr. Steele sent me his personal quad, and the views were even less than usual, and I was like, what's happening? And then I just put in brackets, I added in brackets, he really did, and that's when views started happening, because
most people were like, nah.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing though. Like clickbait is a thing, and I find myself quite often purposefully not clicking on a video thumbnail if it seems clickbaity. I don't know why. It's actually, I honestly don't know. I can't explain to you why I do that. It's just so annoying when someone says in their video title this and this, and then they don't do this and this, which is very common, especially because I don't watch just FPV. I watch a lot of gaming. I watch a lot of anime related YouTube videos. I watch a lot of scientific stuff, and especially in gaming, it's almost like a disease that people put in clickbaity thumbnails just to get that click, that attention.
Yeah.
It is
annoying.
Yeah, clickbait is a strange way. I think I still don't know how big channels keep going with clickbait. Like, like in general, like PewDiePie and these kind of things. Well, I'm not watching PewDiePie anymore, to be honest, because I've been disappointed a lot of times. But
I agree.
The thing is, it depends if you want instant big videos or if you want to build an audience, and it depends what you want to do with your channel. In my opinion, I like doing sometimes clickbait when I've done an edit that I hope people will watch because it took me effort. So I feel like, I should just try clickbait a bit because I spent 5 hours on this. I'd like people to watch it, but most of the time I try not to lie too much, because then you lose the people that liked you, and I'd rather have a genuine relationship with the audience than instant gratification, these kind of things.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, the clickbait is definitely a form of lying, and that's what makes it so icky, if I can put it like that. But the thing is, unfortunately, if you're still growing your channel, be it any social media, it doesn't necessarily have to stick exclusively to YouTube. To stand out, unfortunately, you have to do that, because if everyone else does that, then you not doing that's just going to hurt yourself.
That's true. That's sad, but that's true. Or maybe you justify the clickbait by actually doing something you plan to do in the titles, but it's when it gets harder.
Like the annoying clickbait is when there's a guy that like flat out lies in the title or like puts a picture of his brand new device that's completely different in the video. That's annoying clickbait to me. Like after a channel does that, I just unsubscribe. Cool, I'm done with you now.
Here's the new GoPro Session 6.
Exactly,
Nice.
that kind of thing. Or like best mobile gaming devices, and there's a PS4 controller style with a screen in the middle with a game on it that everyone plays, like Lara Croft Tomb Raider or something, but in the game it's just a Bluetooth controller for your phone. No. But then the other clickbait where like a guy will hit a small gap in the video and then he'll like make it look way harder than it actually was in the thumbnail, that's okay, because that's not lying, that's just over expressing. I don't know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's all right. I think you're right with that.
New clickbait, hashtag Tango2.
Yeah, so many times. But Noellie, thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's been really, really awesome. Do you have any questions for some South African pilots or anything we can answer that you might have questions of?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. So, you mentioned earlier that it can get very hot where you live. I don't think we were live when you mentioned the temperatures.
Yeah.
And I can relate a little bit. And a few times I had even my VTX struggling in hot temperature. I was
Let's even
wondering-
talk about that.
I want to talk about that. I want to know that with you guys. How often do you have like gear failing because it's too hot in South Africa?
Me, I have that issue a lot. So in winter is usually the worst time for me to test things because it never represents how hard they're going to get pushed in summer. Like in winter, my motors will come down like, yeah, they'll be warm, and like BTXs will come down pretty cool from like flying, because I mean I race most of the time. And then in summer, I'll take off, I'll fly like I would in winter normally, I'll land, and then I'll pick up the quad by my motor and singe my fingertips, because that's just how hot it's gotten between winter and summer. Because like here on the farm specifically, we have a lot of humidity and temperature shift, and I've just found that in summer, the gear takes a lot more strain to keep up than it does in winter.
Yes. Wow. Do you have to change your PIDs and everything as well, or not really?
I've tried, but I can turn my PIDs to the point where the quad oscillates, and I can then turn them way down to where it just flies like crap, but it wouldn't normally heat up anything, and the motors will be roughly the same temperature.
Well, I've had my motors overheat randomly, like they fly perfectly, and then I went flying one day and for some reason they were super hot when I came down, and then I realized, oh, it's actually because it's 40 degrees and I'm flying my normal stock pit, or the pits I was flying.
I can definitely vouch for that, because that is exactly my experience as well. Sometimes you even just 2 degrees difference, like the one day it would be 38 degrees Celsius, the next day it would be 39 or 40 degrees Celsius, and just that small difference is enough to put it over the edge where you can fly on the one day and then the next day your motors are just trying to set themselves on fire.
Yeah, I had that as well. Like I went to fly at the Orange River here, and on that day that I was testing my gear out, because this was like 2 days after we'd set up camp and everything, it was 49 degrees, I think.
That's hot.
And I was hovering and I landed and my motors were hot, and I was like, hang on a minute, this is not normal. And I adjusted PIDs and everything and nothing really changed. And the interesting part for me, and I think it was probably because the air is just that dry up there, was nothing smelled hot at all. Then I come back home and I fly it as hard as I normally do. The motors are the same temperature, but if I fly them any harder or adjust the PIDs any higher, they get hot to the point where you can smell something's not healthy anymore. So I think it all depends on what's getting hot on the motor. Is it just hot from temperature, or is it hot from something else that's making it get hot, like PIDs or something?
All this talking about temperatures makes me excited for summer, because I'm literally sitting in front of my laptop kind of shivering at the moment because it's so freaking cold.
Oh no. It's cold here too.
If I can say one thing that also must be quite a big thing, well, one thing that I've seen is, and you said Onigiri, was the VTX, especially with the TBS going up to like 800 milliwatts. I mean, that thing, if you've got it plugged in for like not even 3 minutes, it's already, you can smell whatever's cooking on there is busy cooking.
Usually
So, I mean, that definitely does play a major factor, especially if we're hitting temperatures between 35 and 40. Like I must say, there's some nice mountain ranges here in Cape Town. So we do like mid-range to semi-long range, if I could say. So we get nice airflow on the VTX. But when you come and land, you unplug in that battery quicker than anything else there.
Yeah, like where I live, there's mountains on both sides of the town I live in, so I've been itching to go some mid-long range on them.
You guys down at Cape Town have all the great spots. We up here in Pretoria, Johannesburg side, it's literally, there's nothing here. It's just like, it's like Noellie said at the start, it's just flat and nothing, and cities. So I mean, there's no real space to fly except some obscure parks if you're lucky.
I have another question if you have time.
Yeah.
It's about wildlife in South Africa when you fly drones. Because when Johnny FPV did that, I don't remember which country it was in Africa.
That rhino video.
Yes. We have wildlife here. Like kangaroos can be very scared by drones, and they can, be like when they're stressed, they can generate like in their blood a sort of toxic substance. I don't really know how to describe that, and then it can be very bad for their heart. So we try to be careful not to fly around them, but that's pretty much all we are careful about. Like cows and other things, sometimes it happens. You're in the desert, there's wild cows. Well, too bad. I was wondering, in South of Africa, what about wildlife? Are you guys like in contact with it, and what do you do when it happens?
Okay, so you won't find, contrary to popular belief outside of South Africa, you won't find a lion roaming the streets. You also won't find anything like a giraffe or an elephant or whatever. All those things are usually contained within the national parks of South Africa, and it's strictly illegal to fly there. Like there's no way.
Okay. I was very curious about this because here it's different. In Australia, kangaroos are everywhere. The spot I was talking about before with the high trees and the bench, that is also Snake FPV spot. As soon as there's sunset, kangaroos are everywhere, and it's weird because 1 second they're not here, and the second after they're all there, and you're like, oh well, I better stop flying now because you don't want to hit one, something like this.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No. I was just saying. I know Johnny FPV did that rhino chasing scene where he was filming the rhinos as they were running. I think that video actually generated quite a bit of controversy, but as far as I'm aware, he had very, very high level special permission, and it was planned well in advance to do that. And he was actually helping the rangers do stuff. They were on site with him, asking him to do that. I think they were actually relocating the rhinos or something. I don't quote me on this. I just know that the controversy surrounding what he did by flying so close to them is not really justified because it was all planned and he had the appropriate permission and stuff.
It just boosted the misconception. It boosted the misconception of wildlife everywhere.
I was part of that multiple thousands of comments argument that happened on the bottom of that post on Instagram. I was in there, and then I went to all the different profiles that posted it and tried to link everything up because there were some people that were making ridiculous claims about what he was doing that were completely wrong. But he had full on permission. He had wildlife specialists there, and most of the times in the national parks, the thing that people didn't get is they chased the rhinos with a chopper, like a full-size helicopter with 3 people in it, 10 meters away from these things.
Yeah, that's all they do.
Which, in my opinion, is a lot worse than having a quad a meter away from you.
Yes. Yeah. Also, I've seen some animals not being scared. They just, they acknowledge there's something around them, and apparently what Johnny was trying to say is the rhino were moving already, and then he chased them while they were moving. I don't know if that's true. Don't quote me on that either. But I think too many people became sort of animal experts on that part, and and try to share the wrong message about it. I personally thought it was amazing that we could have such a stunning video thanks to a drone.
Most definitely.
A drone that would not have hurt too much these beautiful animals. I don't think so, but that's just my opinion.
100%,
I had a
yes.
similar experience to that, just not with a rhino, obviously. Here on the farm, because I live on a farm, and I was flying my first ever long range quad, which was a 6-inch. I was flying from the top of our land all the way to the mountain. It's probably about 1.5 k's direct line of sight. Who's got an echo?
Yeah, sorry, my ADSL completely dropped. I had to just join on my wireless.
It's all good.
But do you just want to sort out that echo?
Okay. Well, anyway, what was...
Speaking about on the farm, you live on a farm.
What was quite cool was I was flying, and then my dad said, "There's a bird behind you." And here I thought, in like half a second, I'm about to be dive bombed by an eagle. But I turn around and like start like flying backwards, like looking at him, and he followed me all the way. Like I circled him, I was flying behind him. He was totally chilled about my quad being there. Contrary to a lot of people who we've told the story to have thought that if you did that 100%, you'd either get dive bombed or the bird would be like super stressed. But he was completely chilled. I mean, I was flying next to him at one point. I was following him down the slope of the mountain. It was really, really cool.
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah, I can't say I've had any real experiences with animals or anything other than my fair share of following, the birds on the side of the coast or something like that. But I can imagine, that must be something that's it must be quite a subject to, if I could say, to speak about, because of the fact that, like, Johnny had full on permission, firstly, for that chase on the rhinos, and I agree 100% with regards to the video that we saw to that. I mean, you don't ever get to see that. That's just it's unfair that we got to see those images, or that video, just because it was so good.
Especially because it's rhinos. Like, rhinos are almost very, very, very highly protected.
Yeah, and I mean they intense animals, if you could say. They're not.
Yeah, you can go to the Kruger National Park for a holiday and go look at wildlife in their natural habitat and never even see a rhino for 7 trips to the Kruger. They're so rare because they're so endangered.
Yeah, that as well. But also being an environment around mountains, I don't know if there's something with regards to mountain lions here in Cape Town. I've read about a few things, but I'm not too sure if it's with regards to Cape Town. But we don't really have wildlife roaming between us. There's maybe occasionally, like if we go to, like, let's say a office park that's very big, there'll maybe be some bucks on the office park, but then again, you're not really allowed to fly there unless you get the permission. So we don't really have wildlife just roaming around everywhere. There are insecure spaces and, in zoos and
it's very similar, I think, to what it is there by you, Noellie. Like, people have a misconception that it's different. We have normal cities, normal streets. It's pretty much the same.
Everyone thinks there's a lion in our backyard.
No, don't worry. I was not wondering that. I was wondering if it was like, because Australia, when people say kangaroos are everywhere, it's quite true. You can be very close to Melbourne, like you can be 30 minutes drive from Melbourne, and suddenly it's not planned, but there's kangaroo in a sort of park, but it's not. They're wild. They're still wild kangaroos. No one put them there. So I was like, maybe it's the same where you guys are. You might have some, I don't know.
I would
lions.
say there's more wild animals in Australia than there are wild animals in South Africa, like uncontrolled or outside of parks.
A lot of ours is just mainly like birds. Like in a lot of in the more rural areas, the farmland areas, like here by Caledon and Hermanus and those kind of towns, I think you would find more of that sort of animals in parks and things. But I know in the cities, or at least from what I've seen, in the parks, a lot of the time you'll just find birds, like random birds in the park, and then the moment you get there, they'll walk to the other side or fly or whatever.
Yeah, all right, okay.
I don't know if the guys from the actual city can confirm that, but that's just what I've seen.
No,
Yeah,
that's pretty much spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, any more questions, Noellie?
No, actually, I was actually curious about these two things. I would love to ask you guys more questions on like if we keep in touch outside of this podcast. But for
Cool.
now, I think it's all good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's been great. Do you want to take over again, Lyle?
Yeah, has anybody else got any questions?
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right.
All good.
Okay, well, I think that concludes this session for the podcast. Noellie, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
releasing-
Thank you very much.
Until then, thank you everybody else for joining.
Okay.
Gustan, thank you again for joining, man. It's always a pleasure having you on the podcast. Buks, thank you, man.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
Jadon,
Awesome.
as always.
Always a
thank
pleasure
you,
to be
Gustan.
here.
Yeah, and that concludes the session. Happy flying, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one. Oh,
hashtag this week.
before we end that, we've got the Cape Town FPV regionals coming up on the 14th of July.
Yeah.
The Cape Town Mathematics. Where's it, Jadon?
The Cape Academy of Maths and Science, the high school,
Cape
I
Academy.
think.
That's where it normally is. That place. All right, but yeah, thanks guys, and we'll catch everybody on the flip flop.
Do we have a
No.
hashtag this week?
Hashtag keep on flying. I don't know. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks guys.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Have a good one.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.